Good morning. Dan Alasso with History for Today. And I have just a short note this morning. This morning I watched the first third of a rather long video by Nick Nilo, where he interviews author Eleanor Konik and she demos her Obsidian workflow. This was very interesting. As I said, it's a long video, nearly 90 minutes long, so I'm taking it in half-hour chunks. I listened to the first third of it this morning, and I'll continue until I've completed the whole thing. And I may have more things to say about it later. Initially, I found the video to be an interesting combination of Obsidian pro tips and a look at Eleanor's thought processes and ideas. And as I was watching, I found myself interested in both. I think it's valuable seeing someone doing real, meaningful work with a tool. It provides an anchor for the relatively deep dive into the technical details of a process. And I have to say, the process is a whole lot more advanced than mine. I don't really use even maps of content yet as such. And I really didn't get the whole data view section that begins at about 34 minutes, so I'll have to go back tomorrow and watch that again. I also didn't completely understand the point of the comments that she was using, which are separated from the rest of the text with double percent signs. I suppose that probably relates to some type of automated output process that allows parts of what she's written to remain hidden from eventual readers. This type of automation isn't a process I'm going to use probably, so I'm not sure how much I'll invest into learning that. Watching these types of videos reminds me that there is a lot under the hood of an application like Obsidian, and that there's also a lot being continually developed and refined. I haven't really spent that much time looking at the forum, which I've heard is a very active and a pretty friendly space. I would probably learn some useful things if I invested a bit more time there. I would also probably get a lot out of Nick Nilo's Linking Your Thinking training. Not quite ready to do that yet, but I can see myself doing it in the future. What I'm trying to do currently, however, is to use the system for note-taking and to learn the things that I need to learn to take the notes that I need to take. While I do think generally that it's useful to learn some power user tips, I really want to stay focused on the job rather than on the tools. As I learn new things about apps like Obsidian, in the process of trying new things and integrating new techniques into my process, I will report out those discoveries. Sometimes I make mistakes, such as my ongoing flirtation with hashtagging. I'm still not really 100% decided on the effectiveness of that or how I'm going to use it, even today. And I like to imagine that a user at the level that I'm at might be interested in hearing about my gradual discovery of the tools and the evolution of my process. I'm not criticizing at all, but the 90-minute fire hose approach can be challenging, and there's a lot to digest there. So my approach will continue to be to take the tools learning part slowly. I'll continue watching about a half hour at a time of these videos, and when I'm done with this interview, I'll watch Nick's other interviews and the Linking Your Thinking content that he's made available on YouTube. And then I'll probably watch other experts' deep dives on channels like Brian Jenks and Effective Remote Work and Curtis McHale, etc. A half hour at a time. But mainly, I'm going to try to spend about twice as much time each day entering information and processing reading notes for the foreseeable future. Job one is to get the research that I've already done into the system, and then job two is to continue that research. Actually, job one is to teach my students, but you know what I mean. So I'll continue to learn more about the tools as I'm using them. In the first half hour or so of this interview, the thing actually that jumped out at me had to do with teaching. The hardest part of note-taking, Eleanor says, very close to the beginning, is the question what to take notes on. And this is worth remembering, I think. It's very easy for me to take notes now. I've been highlighting and writing book reviews for decades, first in paper journals, and then in blogs, and now in apps like Obsidian. So it's pretty obvious to me when I'm reading or when I'm listening to a text what ideas rise to the level of being worthy of getting into my notes. It's valuable, though, for me to remember that this is not necessarily the case for my students. So I'm thinking I should build in some lessons when I teach this about what is important to note and how to make that decision. Eleanor warns that if you're just capturing everything that's interesting, then you'll highlight everything, and then you'll never do anything with the information. I agree. You need to be guided by some question or some particular interest. And I think the message is that it's okay to let your interest or your question guide you. Unless, of course, you're reading to answer a particular question that a teacher may have asked you. Then you probably ought to be guided by that. But otherwise, assuming that you've been given a choice about what to focus on, or you're reading for your own purposes, then follow your interest and don't apologize for that. It's not like you're burning the parts of the book that you don't note down. You can always go back to it with a different question and find other insights. So maybe it's ironic that my main takeaway from the first third of this very technical video was about choosing what to take notes on. But as I watch this again, I will probably get more of the technical insights. And I think that they will become valuable to me as I find a use for them with my own notes in my own process. And I'll report on that as my process develops. Hello again. A quick little postscript. I just got a comment from a viewer of my previous video suggesting that I could take all of my white pine lumber industry notes in my main vault and put them in a subfolder that I could then open as their own vault. And I had actually put them in a subfolder, but I didn't realize that I could actually go ahead and open them as their own vault. And so thank you very much, Reed Robertson. I greatly appreciate that. That is exactly the question that was in my mind when I was trying to decide whether or not to go ahead and separate these out and make a new vault from these. And my main reason for not doing that was that I wanted to maintain links to other things that really weren't inside that research project. And of course, there would be some issues with syncing across different folders. So this is super helpful, and I really appreciate it. And this is an example of the types of little discoveries and little insights along the way where the tool is going to really help make the work so much more valuable. So I hope people found all of this interesting. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again